suffering from chronic migraine, traumatized Sister Gertrude secretly relies on potent morphine injection to keep performing her duty at a hospice. However, as excruciating pain evolved into a daily nightmare, defenseless and unsuspecting patient start dropping like flies, and Sister Gattu's constant anguish transforms into something inexplicable. Undoubtedly, someone takes great pleasure in inflicting pain on the hospital's elderly inpatient. Is there an escape from the clutches of the depraved Killer Nun? Killer Nun is a crossover between two of sleaze cinema's most popular subgenres, the graphically titled Nunsploitation and the more popular Italian thriller known as Giallo. I can't say I'm very experienced with the former, but I am a big fan of the latter. And the fact that this film was a part of the video nasty list back in the 80s ensured that I had enough reason to see it. As a video nasty, this film isn't all that good and is unfortunately one of the more tame entries on the list. And to be honest, I can't see a good reason for banning it, other than the obvious implication of a nun taking it upon herself to begin killing people. As a Giallo, this film isn't all that good either, as there isn't a lot of mystery going on, and the murders aren't too imaginative. However, as a slice of sleaze, this film works a treat. The plot follows a nun who finds herself addicted to morphine after having an operation on a brain tumor. However, this isn't the most dangerous element of her psyche. As the patient at the hospital, she works and believes that she is behind a series of murders. The film clearly knows what its main strengths are, and director Giulio Berruti delights in showing things such as love between females and torture to his audience. The idea of one of God's disciples going around murdering people isn't the most original idea ever conceived, but its well work as the film always appears to be completely serious and manages to stay away from the comic book styling of many Giallo, which would ultimately have harmed the film. Cult actress Anita Ekberg takes the lead role and delivers a strong performance, which despite not winning her any plaudit, work well in the context of the movie. And she does carry off the nun look well. Joe D'Alessandro joined in the fun, and the rest of the unknown cast are good enough for this sort of film. The female love scenes in the movie are well done and actually rather erotic, thereby guaranteed to delight the movie's target audience. The plot is always secondary to the sleaze and therefore isn't too interesting, but it plays out nicely, and while the ending isn't particularly strong, this is a good example of sleaze cinema and is recommended to the relevant people. Why on earth are most comments on this Killer Nun so exaggeratedly harsh? It's certainly true that this film differs immensely from all the other nunsploitation movies made previously, with a story that doesn't involve Satan worshipping nun for once, and a remarkably lesser amount of graphic love. but that doesn't mean it's inferior exploitation. On the contrary, I strongly believe the story of Killer Nun actually works for a change. Since it's loosely based on a factual Belgian serial killer case about a mentally unstable hospital convent nurse who turns to murder after imagining an incurable disease. Actress Anita Ekberg, who I think she resembles Kathleen Turner, played the respected Sister Gertrude, but she is no longer the devoted nurse she used to be. She is convinced she has cancer, gets addicted to morphine, and starts to do ungodly things, like mistreating her patient and even provoking men as well as her young roommate. When some patients are found dead, even Mother Superior begin to doubt Sister Gertrude. Killer Nun is atmospheric but often very slow, and admittedly the substance might be too scant to fill a whole horror movie with. Peculiar as well is that director Giulio Berruti hint at several controversial topics, but eventually evade to show anything. And this is probably the reason why so many horror fans claim Killer Nun is a boring and eventless film. Nevertheless, this rare Italian exploitation gem features a terrific musical score as well as a handful of gory sequences. The acting is far above normal 70s Euro horror standard, with Ekberg, Joe D'Alessandro and beauty Paola Mora all in great role. This is a good and underrated film. Sister Gertrude, a nun who worked in a Catholic hospital for the elderly, returned to work after healing from surgery to remove a brain tumor. Gertrude suffered from significant anxiety following her surgery and believes that her cancer has returned, despite the hospital's lead doctor, Dr. Poire, assuring her there is no evidence for it. The Mother Superior of the convent also dismisses Gertrude's fears as hypochondria. Sister Matthew, who has an unspoken love attraction to Gertrude, believes Gertrude's worry is legitimate. Unbeknownst to the convent, Gertrude begins leading a double life, venturing into the city and pursuing love encounter with random men. Gertrude also began to intravenously abuse morphine and heroin that Sister Matthew stole for her from the hospital. A change in her personality is noted by Dr. Poire, as Gertrude begins to mistreat patients and reveal in reading gory hagiography on the lives of torture sent to them. Gertrude successfully managed to have Poire fired from the hospital. While Gertrude is in a drug-induced state, Sister Matthew's grandfather, a patient at the hospital, is bludgeoned to death with a lamp and his body thrown out a window so as to appear as a suicide. Sister Matthew finds Gertrude's veil with his body, but pledging her loyalty, assures Gertrude she will not implicate her, promising to burn it to hide the evidence. Following Dr. Poire's dismissal, the young and handsome Dr. Patrick Rowland is hired as his replacement. During a rainstorm, Gertrude witnesses Jonathan, an elderly male patient, having love with a young female orderly outside. Later, she awakened from a nightmare in which she suffocated Jonathan. Though she is unable to discern whether it was merely a dream or if she might have actually committed another murder. Jonathan's corpse is found the following morning lying in the grass. After leading a prayer for Jonathan, Gertrude has a nervous breakdown. Shortly after, Janet, another patient, is bound and gagged by an unseen assailant before being ritualistically stabbed in the face with needle and slash in the head and neck by a scalpel. After Janet's body is found hanging in an elevator shaft, Dr. Poire sedates a panicked Gertrude. When Gertrude awakens, she confronts Peter, a middle-aged patient on crutches, who claims to have knowledge of who is committing the killing. Gertrude believes him, assuming she is being framed, but he will not reveal any further detail to her. In response, she steals his crutches from him. After Peter's body is found in the boiler room, Gertrude is escorted out of the hospital and met by the Mother Superior, who scolded her for her behavior and has her sent to an isolation cell to be sedated. Meanwhile, Sister Matthew confesses to Dr. Roland to stealing drugs for Gertrude and threatens suicide if she is exposed. She then begins to seduce him. Meanwhile, isolated in her cell, Sister Gertrude sits in a catatonic state, detoxing from her drug abuse. As she regained mental clarity, she recalled the first murder committed in the hospital of Sister Matthew's grandfather. Gertrude realizes that it was in fact perpetrated by Sister Matthew as Gertrude watched it in an intoxicated state. Gertrude, psychologically fragile and in a state of perpetual drug use, mistakenly assumed she was committing each of the murder, when it was in fact Sister Matthew, motivated to kill by the love abuse she suffered as a child by her grandfather. Suor Omicidi, aka Killer Nun of 1978, is a stylish and pleasantly demented nunsploitation horror flick that is quite vastly underrated. While it is certainly not very typical for the nunsploitation subgenre, this is a very atmospheric, at times mesmerizing, and very well acted psychological horror film that lovers of exploitation cinema should certainly miss. The great Anita Ekberg, cult actress of the 50s, starred in the leading role of Sister Gertrude, a nun working in a Christian mental hospital. After having a tumor removed, Gertrude is convinced that still has cancer and along with her proceeding morphine addiction gradually gets more obsessed with this idea. Suddenly people at the hospital end up dead. Unlike most other nunsploitation films, Suor Omicidi is not about devil worshipping or satanic possession. While the film does include love and nudity as well as a variety of perversion, the sleaze level is maybe not quite as high as in typical nunsploitation flick. It is quite demented, however, and even though sometimes a bit slow. Killer Nun always has a tense, creepy atmosphere. The score by Alessandro Alessandroni is downright ingenious and effectively enhances the film's airiness in a brilliant manner. Anita Ekberg is outstanding in the lead, and beautiful Paola Mora is also very good in the role of a young roommate and fellow nun, Sister Matthew. The supporting cast include a bunch of familiar faces for fans of cult cinema, such as Joe D'Alessandro, Alida Valli, Louis Castle, and Massimo Serrato. Overall, Killer Nun is a creepy, atmospheric, and effective flick with a very strong lead. Anita Ekberg plays a nun who is addicted to skag, is losing her marble, and may even be a murderer. Anita worked in a hospital and she was doing fine up until she had surgery to remove a tumor for her brain. Even though she has been given the all clear, Anita is convinced that she is still sick, is hooked on morphine, and hasn't got the cash to buy more. So when she is not freaking out in the operating room, she is pawning heirloom and going out on the pool. She's also got a young nun who is always tripping and making eye at her. While going head to head with the top surgeon guy, Anita now finds that someone is murdering folk in the hospital, and there are plenty of suspects to choose from. Most evidence point to Anita, but as this is some sort of mess-up of Giallo and nunsploitation, things aren't that straightforward. When I think about it, Anita kind of killed the first victim by losing her temper with her and smashing her falsies. Lucasel play a crippled inmate who might be able to solve the case. Not quite sure what Joe D'Alessandro was doing there, as he isn't really given much to do except look slightly concerned. Anita Ekberg, on the other hand, is of the world crazy, shooting down her lesbian pal.